Welcome to Season 3 of the Strange, Rare, and Peculiar podcast, a place where we explore the past, present, and future of homeopathy from the perspective of a couple of insiders who have been around the homeo block a couple of times.
Homeo block? Good morrow, good afternoon, good evening, and hello.
Hello, we're recording already. I still have to move my chair.
Move your chair,
I'm moving my chair.
pour the tea.
Sitting on a chair that's kind of like a throne. It came with the house.
Oh!
I like it, except you really need a cushion. Anywho.
I've forgotten what to do.
What do you mean?
What has been so long?
We had your parents here, your family here for 18 days.
18 days?
It was pretty amazing, actually. It was really lovely. They are on an airplane right now, headed back to New Zealand.
Somewhere over
Bora Bora.
Kiribati.
Okay. Yeah. It was a great visit. Anyway, and here we are. We have a lot to talk about.
Go.
Okay.
Shoot.
So, I'm working on something. Well, let me start with a little bit of... Wait, do you think the tea is ready to pour?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. I got to pour the tea while I talk about this. I'm working on something. I don't know if it's going to become an article.
Folks,
wait, what?
This proves that Denise can chew gum and walk at the same time.
Totally. Oh, please. I raised 2 kids. I live with you. I got to be able to multitask to keep up. All right. Here we go. Pass me your tea. So I'm working on, I'm going to say it's an article. I'm not sure what it's going to be. It's probably going to be a part of a book I'm working on. But this is my working title. The truth may change your opinion. What do you think? That's why I didn't want to tell you ahead of time. I wanted your real-time reaction.
Oh, it hurts so good.
It's good, right?
Uh-huh.
Do you like it?
I do like it.
Yeah. Do you remember when it came out of my mouth? Well, it wasn't the first time, but I did say I was kind of saving it. Well, yeah. Oh, sorry. This background sound is the taking the basket of tea out of the teapot. No, we were with we had a great time last week. Jeremy and Camilla Scher were here. We had the best time.
What a week!
Oh my gosh!
We had my parents on one hand, and then we had my teacher and mentor for years.
Oh my gosh!
Turn up at the same time. It was a little bit overwhelming. Plus Camilla.
And of course, Tammy Herndon, one of my besties in the homeopathy world, she works with the National Center for Homeopathy. She's the editor of the esteemed journal Homeopathy. Well, it's not really a journal, magazine, Homeopathy Today. And so Jeremy and Camilla were with us, and we had so much fun. We could have spent 3 days. We didn't stop talking for a second. None of us took our naps. It was amazing. But I did say that out loud, and it was the first time because I'd written it a while ago.
Nobody got their naps. That's a big deal.
Nobody got their naps. I couldn't believe it. We were all, I'm an 18-minute nap, a minute a day napper. Anywho, so the truth may change your opinion, will change your opinion, should change your opinion. Mm-hmm. Of course, in 2025, might change your opinion. Maybe that's what it is. The truth might change your opinion.
Well, can I talk to you about this?
Yeah, but stop scratching your poison ivy while you're sitting next to me. Can't do it. Nope. The people don't need to hear that. No.
The fine use of acute homeopathic prescriptions. Anyway, go. I'll just suffer in pain myself.
You'll be fine. You'll
live.
By
myself.
Really. You'll live.
Ouch.
Anyway,
Ouch.
What? So why am I talking about this? The truth might change your opinion.
Yeah. Why
did I want to bring that up today? And I'm sort of revealing something that I thought was going to be a great title for an article or chapter or whatever. But we got a howler recently. You know a howler, like in Harry Potter? When Mrs. Weasley sends the howler to Ron screaming
Ron
at him.
Weasley!
Right.
You stole the one, yeah.
And so the howler came because... I don't want to accidentally reveal this person in case they listen to our podcast. I'm not really sure how much familiarity they have with us. I don't know the person at all. But, we're having all these events in the beginning of June. We're having our fundraising gala and our seminar and all this business, and or our retreat, sorry. And so one of the folks who's helping us to organize it wrote to all of the homeopaths and in the area near to us, because it's a community event. It would be really nice to meet all the people. And this one person wrote back and said that they would not be supporting us because you and I have a limited view of homeopathy or something, or
Really?
yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean,
Well, I mean, you can't change someone's opinion, but
no.
that's
But I was like, oh, wow,
quite
that's
an
really...
ouch.
yeah, I mean, it was... And so I thought, if that's the way we come across, apologies.
Oh, no. Well, no, if that's the way that someone... I'm not going to apologize.
Well, I shouldn't say that because I'm listening to Mel Robbins' Let Them book on Audible.
Really?
Let them and
Does
let
this
me.
mean that we can use the term, them haters? Like, I've been reading Kim Kardashian and...
You and your Kim Kardashian.
Someone, I don't know. No, I don't feel like it's not about that actually. I'm being a bit flippant, but what I want to say is that I don't mind if people have a different opinion, but when you're being told you're something that you're not,
that part is kind of hard.
one's quite tough.
I don't know this person. I don't know what they've only recently graduated from school last year, 2024. So not yet a year out. And they may have learned about this from their school. I don't know. So it means that there's an opinion. So I thought, well, it might be interesting to sort of put it into context. So this idea of the truth might change your opinion.
In my language,
Yeah.
I would say that, and not knowing what you're about to say, but I do want to be a part of the conversation.
Good.
So I would say that, yeah, we've got plenty of opinions in homeopathy, and that's where research and robust research matters because, imagine the possibility that we have been doing something for 230 years.
Right.
I'm not about to say anything which critiques the principle of similars or something like that, but imagine... There's a piece of very, very high quality, say, scientific research that demonstrates that statistically, the single remedy is more effective in this named condition than a protocol.
Okay, but let's just leave that out for a second.
No. But the point that I'm trying to make is, how would that change anyone's mind from what they do?
No one gives a flying... Hold on.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's important.
So there's a cartoon that I really like. This is a New Yorker cartoon. And it's a man and a woman. They're having drinks and they're sitting there with their glasses of wine. And he says to the woman, "Let me interrupt your expertise with my confidence." How much do you love that? Right? As a person, as a woman.
Let me interrupt your mansplaining.
Exactly.
With my...
Yeah, exactly. He's making gestures that don't need to be translated. Anywho, and it's really something. And as a person who's maybe had her share of being mansplained a few times around the homeopathy quad, I kind of get that. But listen, here's the thing. And I don't even want to talk about the research for a minute. So we're researching efficacy. Wait, tell me, efficacy, effectiveness. What's the word?
Mainly effectiveness.
Effectiveness, okay.
But I'm just
in the
using
clinical
the term
setting.
Research, where you're saying the word truth.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I think that's the way that I would go about explaining it. That our opinion might, but very often is not going to be
But do you want me to show you the cartoon so you can see the picture of the guy and the lady with the wine? And he says, "Let me interrupt you." Oh, just kidding. But can I finish my thought? I'm sure yours is really amazing.
Oh, look at that sparkling.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so
zip it.
What's interesting to me about this, and we'll get to the research in a minute because that's how we're trying to go forward, right, rather than backward. But there. So I want to talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect for a second. Right? So, because I think that there is something about sort of the way that people are in homeopathy that there's this infectious principle about the excitement people have when they get the miracle. Like everybody has that example of, I gave arnica to a person and whatever. We gave the Leadum for the bee sting and immediately the pain was gone. The person had the migraine headache. They had the tooth infection. They had the all those things. And a well-chosen remedy, acute remedy, can make all the difference in the world. And, Bob's your uncle and they levitate and they go on into happiness. And I think that that's amazing, right? I think that that's amazing. And everyone should have access to acute care homeopathy for their families and should learn the basics.
Beautiful.
Yeah? Okay. So I just want to be clear, I'm not discounting that at all.
Nice.
But then what happens is that excitement becomes, I can cure cancer. I can take care of diabetic neuropathy, and I can just ask a couple of people in a Facebook group for the information about that, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem comes in, because there is the magic. There's no question about it. No one is arguing that point. There is also, and I didn't have a chance to grab the quote, where, you know, the quote that Hahnemann says, "A life of ease." What's that whole quote? I had to reboot my Obsidian app where all my notes are that I can easily search, and unfortunately I can't do it in the moment. Maybe I can.
But yeah, but essentially, paraphrase it. It is, if you want a life of ease, then don't come looking here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, like, I totally get that there is the magic in homeopathy and all of that. Here's the thing, and when you're talking about the research and demonstrating the effectiveness, I think that's really important. But the other position that I'm coming from is I don't know that as a community, people are willing to talk about the shortcomings, the faults, the failed cases. And I think what happens is the critical thinking that's involved, and people will leave one homeopath to go to someone else, and the homeopath that they have left might not have any idea of the situation or the state that the client is in when they stopped coming, and then they make an assumption that that person is capital C cured, when in reality they may actually have, you know, some challenges.
That's amazing, actually, because the reality for me is almost the opposite. That very often, if a client didn't show up, historically for me, if a client never showed up for their next appointment, and I would usually contacted them, say, twice before just letting them go. Inevitably, when I met them in the street or in the cafe or wherever I would meet them, they would say, how are you doing? And I would go, you okay? And they'd say, why would I bother paying you money to tell you that I'm feeling great?
Totally. Well, it used to be that way, though, because it was just homeopaths doing homeopathy, but now everybody and their cousin has a bowel nosode kit that they bought off the street that they're giving to everybody that they know, and everybody is a practitioner.
Not everybody and their cousin has a bowel nosode kit.
Okay. But, you know, we now see this, like, we're now dealing with, so much of my week has been spent dealing with people who want to come for low-cost care at our clinic at HHN, after they send us the list of all the things that they have gotten and they are in bad shape. And who takes on the liability for that, right? So like the kind-hearted part of us wants to say, I can help, although often that's the ego. Oh, I can do it. Nobody else could do it. I could do it. Anytime I have that thought in my head, I think, oh my gosh, I want to be like Dobby, put my head in the oven and bang it a couple times so that I set myself straight, right? Because it's our ego sometimes that inflates us into thinking that we're better than we are at what we do. But sometimes it's that no one has bothered to really think about the reality of the situation. So, for example, if solving chronic disease, somebody who has lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, plaque psoriasis, I could go on. The list goes on, right? Ankylosing spondylitis, that if it was just, you go on Facebook or you Google a couple things or you take a protocol and you get better, the world would not be, we would not be in the situation we're in. And I want to talk about this. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. So this is, it describes a cognitive bias where individuals with low competence or knowledge in a particular area tend to overestimate their abilities and knowledge, while those with higher competence or knowledge may underestimate their capacities or capabilities. This bias stems from a lack of self-awareness in people who are less skilled, preventing them from accurately assessing their own abilities. And so if we as a community go on sort of making it like homeopathy is just so easy, which in acute things, like my sister got a bee sting on her ankle yesterday. She said, should I take arnica? She doesn't use homeopathy much. I was like, no. But can you tell me, does it feel hot or cold? There are only two things that I'm going to try to start off. It's either going to be Apis or Ledum as an opening prescription. We should all feel that confident.
What about Vespa?
Well, that's second chain. But do you know
kidding.
what I mean? Like first,
I totally understand.
And so, but the difference is we get people who, like the latest one that we're now, I'm really worried about a person who has had a gazillion protocols, including, I don't even know that I should be saying this out loud, but there's a porn protocol now.
Clearly.
What is this?
Yeah.
And I can bet you money that Grandpa Banerjee did not come up with the porn protocol. Or maybe he did for all those truckers. There was an NPR segment years ago about the long-distance truckers.
Stop.
I mean...
Yeah. No, I would agree. That's a very modern American... Well, sounds like an American addition. Without... and based on... See, can I describe it in my own way? If I'm working, say, in a company, what's the example of that company? I had a mate of mine lived in Australia and he worked for Blackmores as a product developer. Product developer.
Yeah.
Blackmores is kind of a supplement company, and they did a whole lot of other things as well.
Okay.
And so you know he would get a call from upstairs saying, "All right, for the next 6 weeks, I want you to start developing a product that's going to be useful for peripheral neuropathy."
Right.
All right. And he would start researching and go into the traditional use of, in his world, herbs and supplements, and come up with a product, right? You know, if we use this, there's da-da-da-da-da-da. But there's no evidence for its use until it's developed and then trialed.
Yeah.
And so for someone going porn protocol, okay, so let's use this and this and this and this, maybe based on traditional use or some made-up idea within homeopathy.
Or, I mean...
But without any application.
But, like...
It's extraordinary.
Okay. And that's, I don't even want to get into this sort of protocol versus one remedy prescribing, because that's a whole other conversation. But here's the thing.
You were the one that started
No,
it.
actually started a different conversation. Oh. And the conversation is, because I actually feel real compassion for folks that are spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
Spending a lot of money to see practitioners, and they're walking away not feeling so good. And I feel like rather than a competitive environment, which I know capitalism is based on being competitive and everything, but, Hahnemann says in the introduction to chronic diseases, I could make this all for myself. I could do this and not tell the world what I myself have discovered, but actually, for the benefit of mankind, it needs to be given freely. And again, I don't want to sound bleeding heart about this, and I don't want to sound closed-minded about it. I worry that someone's going to get hurt when we get case after case of people who have taken dozens and dozens, in some cases hundreds of homeopathic remedies, and there are people who are practicing who maybe haven't been given what they need in order to do it. And again, this is not like I'm not trying to do a recruitment ad for homeopathy school. It's more like I want us to have community conversations where we let our egos down and say, does this work?
Some of those conversations
are we doing okay?
Would be, I think, confronting for probably us all. I think there would be some example. It would be. I think it would be good. I think it would be good to engage in a I don't know about a public conversation, but a conversation amongst some
like stakeholders. Yeah. School. So, for example, we started collecting data about our practice at the supervised clinical operations at the Academy of Homeopathy Education starting in 2017, was it? 16, 17? 17. So, and we use, a validated instrument. We started with something called the MyMop, and now we use the MyCaw. And we've actually developed an instrument for the entire community to use, a universal health intake form, which is basically like a lot of practitioners will call it a health inventory. What's the other word for it? Like a health history.
Health inventory form. Yeah,
it's basically, you're filling out all of your basic information, and then there might be a checklist of other, does anyone in your family have this? What are you coming for? What medicines are you taking? What remedies have you taken? Yada, yada, yada. And what we've done is, so this is the research office has created this form. We won't go into all the details about it, but right here, but the form means that anybody who is practicing homeopathy can send this form. There's a link. You send this to your client. They fill it out. You get all the information that you need to have gathered before you see them. And then it comes back to the research office, double de-identified in accordance with human subject research. In other words, we don't find out their name, their birth date. Oh, we might have do we have the month and year of birth? I think we would need to have the birthday just the age.
No, and it's an age range. To de-identify, it's just the age range.
Just the age range, okay.
That's remaining.
Got it. So every case that comes through any of our clinical initiatives and operations, right, we are actually tracking all of that information. But here's the important part. We track it when they leave as well, or we track outcomes from every consultation. And so it's really simple, and it's 2 questions. They take the 2 symptoms for which they first arrived, and what are the 2 most important symptoms, and then it's on a 6-point Likert scale. Well, it's actually 0 to 6 is really 7 points. It's a 7-point Likert scale. Yep. And then there's a well-being question. Anywho, and we follow that. And so then we track the outcomes, right? So we crunch the numbers, and then we ask the question, like, is the job that we're doing working out? And luckily, we have found that, yeah, actually it is. And we have beyond 84 and 86% acute and chronic movement of our clients in a positive direction consistently since 2017 onward. And this is in a teaching clinic. I mean, it's well supervised, right? But it's still not like it's the top level homeopaths in the world. So that makes me think, okay, I feel good about doing single remedy prescriptions. Like, that's fine for me. And I'm fine that other people do what they do as well. I want to be clear about that just because of the howler that we got.
Is that what you mean about the truth?
No, yes and no. So that's one way of truth. Okay. I think there's a lot of things about truth, right? So I think the truth would change your opinion. So for example, if we start measuring outcomes and not just measuring at a week or 2 weeks or a month, but looking at our cases over time, are people reaching a high, totally different conversation. Are people achieving a higher level of health over time? That's what we're looking for.
Isaac Golden says yes.
Yeah.
Actually, there's 2. That's what cohort studies are brilliant for. Mm-hmm. And I was reading today that a gentleman that Jeremy has just put me in touch with, Oberbaum.
Oh, this is the Israeli guy who's going to be at the conference in October.
In October, yeah, mm-hmm. has conducted a couple of really interesting studies of tracking folks over a long period of time, looking at broad health measures. Isaac did it over 15 years. Mm-hmm. Not peer-reviewed, published.
Right.
But that was his PhD study. And that's what cohort studies have done. The 2 big ones, the German one and the EPI3 French cohort studies, mm-hmm. where they've crunched the numbers of people that have been tracked over whatever period of time it was, might be 5-7 years. Pretty compelling results.
So this is the thing, right? Imagine that we're doing this as a community. Instead of fighting, these people are good, these people are bad, we look at it and we say, look, let's measure outcomes.
Yeah.
Let's measure outcomes. And let's see how people are doing. We may find that certain other iterations of using potentized substances, and I'm calling them potentized substances, not homeopathic remedies, because they are only homeopathic if they are used according to the principles of homeopathy.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
It is.
But I think that was actually the point that I was trying to make earlier. Like, imagine, can I
Yeah, no, we're good. I just wanted to finish that first thought.
But imagine a situation where, say we do a study, like a 2-arm study, where we do individualized homeopathy using 1 arm, and let's call it a named condition, like, postnasal drip or something. And we do a isopathic arm and an individualized arm. What happens if the isopathic arm in that study is statistically more efficient or better, or comes up with a better result than the individualized arm? Would that change your practice?
It depends. And it depends on the fact that, because I've used isopathic remedies and tautopathic. So isopathy, for those who aren't familiar, isopathy is the use of treatment by same as opposed to similar, right? Mm-hmm. So homeopathy is based on the laws of similars. Isopathy is same. And it's usually like it would be giving well, I can think of an example, not a nosode. Rustux. is kind of isopathic, isn't it?
For this?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Are
Yeah.
you kidding?
So Alastair just did kind of a quasi-allopathic prescription. Isopathic prescription, because he's got poison ivy, and he took Rustux, and the Rustux is made from poison ivy. It kind of is. I mean, it kind of is and it kind of isn't. I don't want to get into the nuances of that, but tautopathy is when you take a medicinal substance, so a drug that someone maybe has never been well since taking that drug, and you give that in the homeopathic form. In other words, it's been, or not homeopathic form, but in the potentized or dynamized form as sort of like a neutralization. Now, the reason I said it depends is because there's one, when the totality is small, in other words, you've got a perspective that's very condensed on a very particular thing that has happened, and you know that a person has never been well since this one thing, and that there are not a lot of confounding factors, or you've tried the, individualized prescribing and it has failed, then you might try something like that, an isopathic or tautopathic intervention. The where it gets into a more convoluted space is when you're dealing with, say, an autoimmune condition. So I just came off of teaching the autoimmune block to our advanced students, which is, I don't know how many lectures it is now, it's a lot. But we talk about what I call kind of colloquially the bucket concept, but what is also known in the medical realm as the allostatic load. In other words, an organism remains in health until such time as more factors taking them away from health are there than they can manage. And that could be anything from, allopathic medicine, food that isn't good, a lot of stress, right? We measure ACEs scores, the Adverse Childhood Event Score, which there have been a number of studies, including long-term cohort studies on people who have had multiple adverse childhood events and the likelihood that they will be hospitalized for an autoimmune disease later in their life. I think it was Kaiser Permanente did the study in California in the, I want to say in the 90s and the 2000s, and it's a long-term cohort study, really quite interesting. Anyway, so if somebody has like a whole bunch of stuff happen to them over time, and then there's like the last straw, and that last straw can be getting stung by an insect. It could be getting a vaccination. It could be eating a food and getting food poison. It could be getting the flu. It could be COVID. Any of those things sort of become the last straw. The bucket overflows. Well, the problem with those detoxification strategies is that people focus on the last thing that happened before the health crashed. But when it is something that is autoimmune in nature, and this is kind of a conversation too complex for a podcast, but we're talking about dealing with a developed miasmatic disease, which then you run a little bit more of a risk if you're prescribing something isopathically or tautopathically, because it's part of a bigger complex of symptoms.
Much bigger.
Much bigger. So you see how we go from having like this sort of friendly conversation about like we kind of do what we do and everybody is like doing okay. It's as long as the outcomes are okay. But one of the problems is that we start to see people that have been sort of having fun with homeopathy. Oh, I'm having fun. I'm trying it out on my friends. And then it turns out that one of those friends has an autoimmune disease, has lupus. And okay, so you're treating their skin rashes, but that is not necessarily, they might get a short-term blip of a rise in health, but that is borrowed from the larger vitality, and they can have a long-term tank. Yeah. These are conversations that I think we need to be having, but instead we've moved like this amazing, elegant system of medicine onto social media. So this is the Dunning-Kruger effect, right?
Unconscious incompetence.
And then conscious competence is the goal.
In school comes conscious incompetence at the very beginning of formal study, which then becomes conscious competence. Yeah.
And conscious
competence. At the end of
right.
training, at the end of school, which then, after years and years of practice, becomes unconscious competence.
With a good, healthy dose of reflection on what we can and can't do so that we don't have...
I got asked something the other day, which I was really kind of surprised about. But it was that I got asked what were the most spectacular cures that I'd had.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought to myself, and first I was going, I don't know that I want to answer that question. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, I mean, sure, over the years, there was that MS case, and there was that situation with a person with ALS that got dramatically better, or the Parkinson's patient that did really well, the client that had Parkinson's. And then I just realized that that's not the reason that I do it, because I love the daily normality of improving people's itches.
Yeah.
I'm holding up my arm. It's like, that's really amazing to be a part of that. I'm going to call it daily normality of homeopathy.
Because there's the long-term relationships that we build with people that's really amazing. I had a consult today with someone who I've worked with for a really long time, and she's like in this really amazing place on her healing journey, and we were talking about her dreams and reflecting on how those dreams were this really clear indication of where she is in her progress of health. And it's amazing, and how she can now look at that and see so clearly where she is. It's not like she doesn't struggle. We all struggle. But it's like, where are we in terms of our health journey? And how,
That, for me, that is much more important for me. And in terms of, and in that experience that I just described to you, I didn't have access to all of the kind of people coming with named conditions, but I've got access to
the relationships and stuff.
The relationships, the kids that you help, the mums that you help because you've helped the kids sleep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Can I tell you, one of the things that I love the most is when I'm teaching and I'm drawing in my brain for a case that is done really well, given, whatever the thing we're talking about. And the cases that I'm drawing from often are from our teaching clinic.
Right.
Right? I love that because, we're seeing this incredible progress take place. And we're seeing it because the students are engaged in this learning process where, with assistance, in this... it's like learning to be a trapeze artist and having, the belt on and the net. You're still the person who's doing the flip, but somebody is there making sure that when do you launch and when do you let go and all that. Like being a trapeze artist. You know what a trapeze artist is?
In the circus.
Yeah, the flying.
But what's the belt? I suppose when you're learning.
When you're learning, exactly. You wear like a belt.
You don't just guess and go, let's try this one today, and then plummet to your death.
I mean, unless you need Metarinum. Or maybe, like a bad Orem day or,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about this because I want to be a catalyst for community conversation in a really positive way. Because that howler that we got there was a presumption of negativity. And if that is something, if that's the vibe, let's take that back. Can we reframe the negativity and have it be care and responsibility and accountability for what we're all doing and helping each other to be our best selves as practitioners by focusing on that there is 230 years of clinical evidence for what we do. And that when we really pay attention to that, the hard work of learning, it really does pay off, right? And it's not opinion. At a certain point, we have to move beyond opinion to have enough evidence. I mean, we all have our opinions and we do the things in our own practices, but there's a way in which it's gone, like the horse has left the barn. And what we're trying to do is, with all this interest in homeopathy, imagine we bring it together. If we use the Universal Health Inventory Form and the MyCaw as an example, right? This is for everybody. This is for everybody, right? And so if we're not afraid of our outcomes, then we start measuring them. And it's not that, it doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't cost any money, and we've got an entire support team to help. So we're putting ourselves out here saying, we're measuring, we want to see what happens. You do it too, everybody, let's do it. Let's support each other by having this information. Because imagine, it's one thing to have, an article with 20 cases or 50 cases. It's another thing to have a cohort study with thousands of cases. Right now we have 6,000 cases through our acute clinic. That's acute. We've got 2,000 cases currently in our chronic clinic. These are all the supervised cases, right? That's not counting regular practices. That's just our numbers. Imagine you add your numbers in, homeopaths who might be listening. It becomes like a wall of evidence.
Imagine
and
throwing
then
in Dick Moskowitz's cases,
Oh my
40,000 cases.
Oh my gosh.
You know,
that man.
for example.
I haven't read his book yet. The one, everybody who read it said they cried. Just these amazing experiences. So for those, Richard Moskowitz is a medical homeopath, who had just this brilliant life story, who wrote a book about his becoming a homeopath, and I have not had the privilege of reading it yet, and I really want to. But imagine we take those cases, right? So this idea that the truth might change your opinion, it works in so many ways, right? So the truth might change our opinions about maybe practicing based on some things that are not evidence-based. But on the other hand, the truth, like the evidence using validated measurement tools, publishing in peer-reviewed journals with irrefutable amounts of evidence and cases, could also change the opinion of the establishment, which is that we're a bunch of, quacks who are walking around without shoes. But does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
So
for sure.
So we need this wall of unity, right? We got to do it. We got to do it. I'm here.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
We have a bunch of other really fun stuff to talk about coming up. There are a couple things like the totality conversation that we were having before. I want to talk more about that because that sort of is a springboard from this acute chronic conversation that we were just having, like all the things that we can do at home on our own that are so unlikely to have an adverse event.
For example, what's that?
Your poison ivy is an acute.
Yeah, but why was I in that particular patch in the garden at that particular time? What was going through my mind? And oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's all your susceptibility. Because you're an otherwise healthy person who is not undergoing ongoing chronic treatment for something that is robbing your energy. Your miasmatic burden is quiet at the moment. Therefore, totally safe to deal with that. But if I was working with someone who had a deep degenerative neurological disease and we finally got a remedy that was helping them through and they got poison ivy, I'd have a whole lot of questions before I would give the remedy. I might be more inclined to have them in an oatmeal bath or use some calamine lotion or something like that before I would change the remedy. Those are the conversations that when we do that and we sort of acknowledge that we're all learning. I mean, look, when I talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, I feel really grateful that, you and I trained at a time where there wasn't Facebook homeopathy and all this stuff, right? I love that it's spreading the message, but I don't know what I might have done if I didn't have the discernment and what to do. I might have, who knows? So, excuse me, but right now because of the knowledge, I sit in a funny place, and maybe you do too, of sort of healthy restraint. At least I hope it is, and it's not just my lack of confidence.
Do you mean your clinical posture of healthy restraint? Is that what you mean?
I hope.
Absolutely. I'm very conservative. Yeah. and I would say in terms of if prescribing is number of remedies or repetition would be at the lower end of the spectrum for sure.
How many times do you think you take a homeopathic remedy a year?
Probably when I ding my head, maybe 5 times.
So maybe 5 acute remedies and maybe every other year you're having chronic treatment. That sounds about.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and approving once a decade.
So here's someone who's been a homeopath for 36 years, who takes maybe 5 remedies a year, and maybe it might be a couple different, like an episode. Like we had the flu last year this time, and we would have taken remedies obviously for something acute like that, or you bang your head in the garden, or now you've got rust poisoning. Okay. You're at I would say a higher level of health than me. I had a diagnosis back in the 90s, which has been managed only with homeopathy and some good clean living. But I probably will engage in chronic care maybe twice a year to your once every 2 years. With the occasional acute thing happening.
Isn't that interesting? That would be good to do a poll of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So people who are listening, how many remedies have you taken in the last 6 months to a year?
Give us a number.
Yeah, I'd be really curious. And of course, if you were engaged in chronic treatment, when I think about my clients who are in the active phase of unraveling their chronic issues, then they're going to have there's going to be more intervention, and that's totally appropriate, right? So these are the conversations that we want to have.
Next time, totality, huh?
Totality.
Let's
what it's all about. Totality.
All right, totality. And
we're going to have a special guest, Carly Auer from NAHI, the North American Homeopathy Examiners.
Carly.
Carly's coming on. That's either going to be the next or the following.
Wow.
Yep. All right. We got a meeting now. We got to go. Hey, thanks for listening, people.
See you, folks.
What if you gave yourself 3 days to deepen your practice, connect with a like-minded community, and walk away with 9 CEUs. The Potentized Homeopath Retreat isn't just another seminar. It's a rich, immersive experience. You'll explore complex case management for autoimmune conditions and PANS pandas, dive into potency and posology, and engage with 15 new provings and reproving remedies. There's even a Homeo Nerd Out party and a peek inside the Hahnemann archives. All this while supporting the HOHM Foundation's vital work in research and education. Join us in Philly, or virtually, June 2nd through 4th. Visit ahe.online/events to reserve your spot today. The Academy of Homeopathy Education provides various pathways through our program depending on your desired outcome. Our acute care homeopathy programs cater to students and medical professionals who aspire to use homeopathy in an acute care setting. We also offer introductory, professional, clinical training, and postgraduate programs. You can learn more at ahe.online.